This tutorial is about how to assign more than one material to an object in 3ds Max. So for starters, I'm going to come up here in 3ds Max and do rendering, render setup, and currently my render setup, the default is Arnold. I'm going to change that to scanline renderer and close that. For the purposes of everything that I do inside 3ds Max for game art, I don't use the Arnold renderer, I just use the default scanline, and so I always switch it over to that. Okay, so now that I'm in there, I want to open up my material editor, rendering, material editor, slate material editor. There's also an icon over to the side. This turns your material editor on and off. You can also just hit M on your keyboard. Alright, so now that I've opened up the material editor, because I already switched it to scanline, you can see I have my general materials and then I have my scanline. Your scanline may be closed. Just know that you may need to click on it in order to open it up. Okay. By default, it's usually grayed out, and so you may need to come over, click to open that up. I'm just going to collect maps because we're not going to use any of those. So if I make an object out here, I'm just going to click and drag real quick to make a sphere. If I drag over a standard material, right click and assign that, that object now gets that color. If I adjust the color of the object here, you can see by adjusting the default, it changes the color. If I adjust the specular level, that adjusts how the specular dot shows up. Right. So if I want to have more than one material on this object, what I would need to do is build what's called a multi-sub-object material. Now you'll find that under Materials, General, Multi-Sub-Object. I'll just drag that in. Now all this is just a collection. It has a number of inputs where you can input materials to it. So if I just take this little dot and click and drag, I can plug that into one. I'm going to double click on the icon to make it larger. So I can set how many of these I want. So I'm going to set the number to 3 and click OK because I'm going to make 3 sub-objects here. So let's bring in 2 more standards. I'll just plug that in. It's over. And plug that into 3, and then I can just click on the little arrows to collapse them. And if I right click on the main one, I can say layout children, and it's just a way to keep it organized. Now if I click on the materials, I can change their colors. And do that real quick. Just select 3 different colors here. And why don't I adjust the specular fall off on this one? There we go. Why don't we give this a different spec color to make this guy a little bit more interesting. And I can double click. So I'm double clicking to make all the icons larger. So I can right click and say layout children. You'll notice that even though I have a multi-sub object here in the world, it just has the regular square. Only this yellow material is assigned. Right? And so if you look at it, you can see it has the little hash marks. With my object selected, I right click and say assign material to selection. It's best to do that in the create mode or display mode because you don't want to accidentally assign a multi-sub object to an individual polygon because that builds a hidden multi-sub object in the background. Let's go ahead and make a box here and a teapot. I'm going to grab all of these objects, right click, and say assign material to selection. Alright, now I'll just kind of move this over to the side. And so now you can see that the sphere, only one material shows up. Whereas on the box, you see multiple materials because the box by default has different multi-sub-object IDs. Let's talk about how we get in and access those. First off, you'll need to grab all these objects and get them into edit poly mode. So I'm just going to convert all them to edit poly. So now, if I come in here, select polygon, and I click on a polygon, you'll see there's a rollout called polygon material IDs. Now clearly I moved this one up here. You'll need to collapse all of your rollouts until you find polygon material IDs. If I go through and I select, so if I region select this box, I can assign all of these one ID, so those are all yellow. And so if I wanted to change the top one to 2, I can do that just by changing that number. I'll delete the box. So now if I come to say the teapot, and go into element, I can select by element and change these. I'm just changing the numbers there. All right, so that's, the box is easy. There's big planes. The teapot is easy because there's elements. But if you have a more complex model, I'm going to click default shading, go to edge faces, and click on the little general tab and click maximize. Just move this guy over. So now this sphere, he's all one ID. If I go into polygon, if I region select over him, you see he's all ID 2. If I click on a polygon, I can manually change that. Right? But if I click on one polygon, hold shift and click on the one next to it, grab that entire loop going all the way around. And so now I can start typing in values, like if I want it to be 1. I can hold control and click shift, hold. There you go. So I'm just going through and changing those. So that's how you can get more than one material on. Another way to easily select, when you're going through and trying to select polygons, if you click on one vertex point and under your selection rollout, hold control and click on the icon for polygon, that'll select what you had selected, and then you could use tools like grow and shrink to adjust which ones you actually have selected. Right? And so that's multi-sub-object material. One common thing that happens is you'll build a multi-sub-object material, but only actually assign one material. So if you're running into an issue where you've gone through and you've changed the assignments, but like if I click select ID 3, right, or if I select ID 1, I can see that there's all these different material assignments. Just double check to make sure you've actually assigned the parent, the multi-sub-object material to it, and that's how you get those in. And that is how you work with multi-sub-object materials, how to get more than one material on your object in Max 2021.